Hi, this is Makona Spokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today I want to speak about pastors' wives, and I want to speak particularly about those pastors' wives that are not having ministry calling, but yet they are being appointed into becoming pastors. I want to speak about when a pastor appoint their own wives into pastoral ministry, while they know clearly that they've got no calling, and particularly in those areas where they don't even have the skill to become a leader. And that's something that we want to deal with today, and I hope that will help quite a few ministers in this regard. The first thing that I want to start with is not every pastor's wife is a pastor by calling. And that must be clarified from the beginning. And I must also say that not every pastor's wife is actually having the capacity or skills to become a pastor. So therefore, you cannot actually think that every pastor's wife should be appointed into pastoral ministry. Of course, we acknowledge the fact that there are those that are called as pastors' wives, they are called into pastoral ministry. And there are those that may not be called but have got skills to become pastors. So therefore, they may be appointed into pastoral ministry. Remember that we have taught about the fact that there are pastors by calling and there are those pastors by appointment. So you have two different types of pastors. Those that are pastors by calling because they've been called by God and God has spoken to them and given them a vision. But there are those that are not called by God, but yet they are appointed by a man of God. Now, in this regard, I'm speaking about a pastor's wife that might have skills and might have leadership skills as well, that might have actually knowledge of running a ministry. So therefore, even though she's not called, this woman of God, but she may be appointed into pastoral ministry and be ordained as well to become a pastor. That's not a problem with that. But I'm speaking about those that are appointed just because they are pastors' wives. And you know that the pastor's wife in this regard has got no capacity, has got no skills at all, has got actually no leadership skills either. But you appoint them into pastoral office just because she is your wife. And that's what we want to deal with today. The first thing that is an implication or a problem with that is the fact that it may cause unnecessary scrutiny on her abilities. It may cause the congregation to scrutinize her skills, scrutinize her ability of leadership, and scrutinize her with everything that she does. The fact that you have appointed her to become a pastor would actually make people to scrutinize and look at how capable is she. And when people start doing that, they basically put it at a sliding slope because they actually pressurize the pastor's wife and they wanted to perform according to the duties of a pastor. She needs to deliver because she has got this position now of a pastor. Then, therefore, they put her under pressure because they wanted to deliver to that level. And that's the implication that may come along with it. So therefore, if you are going to appoint your wife just because she's your wife to become a pastor, you are actually putting it at public scrutiny. You're actually putting it on the pedestal that people will scrutinize her skills and therefore might expose it to be undermined if she fails to deliver to the expectations of the people based on the position that you've put her into. And that's very detrimental as you do so. And that is why some of the pastors' wives' egos have been bruised because they've been put at a place where actually they're scrutinized more closely by the members of the church, by the congregants, and therefore, when they don't deliver, they actually undermine them because of that. So it's not a problem to have a pastor's wife who is just somebody who's participating in church programs and not necessarily to become a pastor. But when you put her at a pastoral ministry, whereby you put her in the position of being a pastor, whereby when you are not there, she's the one who's preaching. And you know for sure that she's got no capacity to preach, or she doesn't have the skill to preach either. So you're actually putting her at a very challenging position where you might actually make church difficult for her as well. Secondly, the other implication will be it may put unnecessary pressure to the pastor's wife to perform, because then she would now try to prove herself. She would go all out to try then to become the superhero who can be able to preach all of a sudden while she could not preach before. She would actually have sleepless nights trying to prepare messages that she may not be able to deliver. So that's unnecessary pressure, because there's no need for pastor's wife to have pressure at all, because the husband running the ministry, he's the one who's actually having a calling, he's the one who's actually called by God. And if that is the case, therefore, don't put unnecessary pressure to the pastor's wife. And if she's not called to become a pastor, don't even bother her, because otherwise you're putting her under unnecessary pressure that might actually make her to crumble. The other thing that we see of often is it may expose her weaknesses as well. Because as I say, when somebody is actually basking and sitting under the shadow of the husband running a ministry, and she's not a pastor, she will do her own duties as pastor's wife. And therefore, her weaknesses are covered and protected. She's protected because of that. But when you start to expose her to a platform, you're basically exposing her of her weaknesses. And as I've said, if you are not there, everybody will expect it to be remaining preaching. But in this case, she may not be able to preach at all, and that will expose her weaknesses in that regard, and that will bruise even her self-image. And that is why you will find some actually losing their own self-worth. They're losing their own self-image because they've been embarrassed by their own husbands by putting them in platforms that they cannot perform. And therefore, they are embarrassed, and therefore they lose their own self-esteem, and they are not going to become better sooner, because they are forever under pressure of feeling that they must perform and become better and live up to the standards that they've been appointed to. So please, let's avoid that as well, because that actually destroys the self-image of our dearest pastors' wives. That is very, very important. And I want us to look at, it may also deny other more capable women opportunity to utilize the calling as well, because there are some of the women that may be in the church with calling, maybe even into pastoral ministry. Some are called actually to preach in preaching ministries as well. You're stepping up your wife, and she's actually there without any calling, without any knowledge and capacity, and therefore she actually blocks even those people that might be capable in your church, those people that might be actually having capacity and knowledge and even skills to preach and minister, and you're blocking them because therefore you've put your wife there and she cannot actually deliver to that which she's required to do. And in this case, generally, we have seen that some of the pastors' wives becomes very threatened of some of the sisters and mothers that are preachers in the church, because she has been put as a pastor. She cannot preach, and somebody, a sister in the church, can preach better than her. Just imagine what will happen. And therefore, you actually expose it to spirits of jealousy and spirit of oppressing others. And therefore, this is something that becomes very problematic. And we've seen this happening in many churches. That is why we mentioned that right now. This is very important. It may also reduce the ministry to a family affair. And we've seen this happening as well. That many of the churches, because of legacy issues, they want this particular church to become a family legacy. The pastor's wife is appointed mainly maybe as a pastor because of that, so that she becomes the deputy pastor in the church. In case the pastor passes on, we already having the pastor's wife who will take over. But you may find that the pastor's wife is not having capacity to do that. She's not capable of doing that. As I said, not gifted at all to do that. So therefore, it becomes problematic to do so just for the sake of legacy. And that is why when it's done that way, it actually reduces the ministry into a family affair. And that is why some of the ministries, you'd find that even the children are getting involved much earlier on into the ministry and forced to do so. And they are ordained as well sometimes quickly so that whatever happens with the pastor, the children may take over, the wife may take over. That is done basically for that. And that undermines the capabilities of some of the members in the church that might be called or gifted as well to run the ministry of this magnitude. And therefore, in this regard, you forced the family, and it has actually made it a family affair, because you have actually forced the family to be part of the ministry that they are not capacitated to do so. I want to end up here today. Your host, Michael Spokane. I thank you very much for listening to us, and I hope that you've learned quite a bit out of it. And before I check out, I want to emphasize the fact that you please like our social media platforms. Make sure that you click those notification buttons, that you may be notified as well when there is video being posted. Remember that we've got a YouTube channel as well, so click and like those that YouTube channel, subscribe, and be part of it. As we teach about these topics, you'll be able to grab hold of those and be able to listen and learn out of this and become a better person. Your host, Michael Spokane, thank you very much for listening to us once more. Join us as we deal with other topics going forward. May the good Lord bless you, and cheers for now.